how did you originally get started in business? Doesn't have to be OnlyFans, but how did you actually get started in the business world?
So my business journey kind of started when I was proper young. So from like 13, 14, this was about 2016 now. There was Yeezys, Off-Whites, all these hypebeast shoes used to sell like crazy back in the day. And I was always into fashion and these kind of things. So back then, I figured out what Yeezys were, and this was before everyone jumped on it. I was in year 8, year 9, and literally every drop, I think it was the Pirate Black 350s were the first one I got, but it was the infant pair. So the first kind of run of shoes that came out, I wasn't aware of it. Then I clocked on eBay that a 150, 200 pound shoe was selling for 800. I was like, what the fuck? So I studied about Adidas, how to get on the drops, and back then there wasn't much competition. So you could get 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. And essentially, my first drop was a Yeezy 750, which you got for about £250 retail, got about 3 pairs, and resold them each for about £600-700. And this was essentially when I was 13, first bit of money. Always used to like save money for my birthday or Christmas before that, and now I was 13, just buying designer clothes, PS4 games, all of this stuff. But that business, I didn't think much of it at the time, but that era of shoes led on to something pretty big for like pretty young. So it started with the Yeezys, then essentially every drop, so this was like once every 2 months a Yeezy would come out, and every drop I'd get with my dad, we'd partner up together, obviously because I didn't have the money for buying these shoes, so he'd provide the money, I'd do the actual buying of the shoe, either queuing out or checking out on the website, whatever it is. And essentially back then there'd be one drop like every 2 months. So every 2 months I'd make like maybe £1,000, maybe 800, it'd vary. And the minute I'd make it, I'd spend it on clothes or back on like keeping one pair, selling the other pairs. But from there, that was 2016, and 2017, pretty similar. Nothing actually picked up, it was still the same thing. But then from 2018 to 19, so I was 15 at the time, I think. From 2018 to 19, that's when Off-White came about. And Off-White this was like the height of everything, when everyone used to wear the hoodies with all this stuff. And it was like the most hyped brand, but their website was so basic. So Nike, Adidas, they all introduced raffles. It got harder to get multiple pairs, but Off-White was where the money was. So from 2018 to 19, me and my dad joined a few like sneaker groups where basically they would have bots that you could buy and run to check out the shoes. So this was like a gold mine back then. Like back in the day, I was in year 10, 11, no, this is year 11, like start of year 11. I was in school checking out like Off-White Prestos, Air Force Ones, all these shoes, like this was like Christmas 2018. So these shoes would drop and we'd have a bot that would auto check out the shoes. But because again, there was not much competition, I could check out on my phone. So 2018 Christmas to mid-2019 was like the golden era. So every day there was a drop of shoe. Every day there was one to buy. And I've got pictures that would maybe put up in the screen of like 100 pairs of Off-White, Air Forces, Travis Scott. Like every single week we were buying. And there were about, retail was £150. Resale was like 600, 1,000 some pairs. So that little era there was probably the golden era of shoes. We were getting at least like 10 pairs a week, getting them for retail, selling them on eBay, doing revenue, I don't know necessarily revenue, but profit, like a consistent 3k a month, 3 to 4k a month. But that's at 15, 16.
Yeah, that's a huge amount.
So like I have no expenses, I'm doing GCSEs and I'm making crazy money and I'm just stacking it up basically. Now I've kind of gone through my era of like when you first make a bit of money, spending it all. So I'm just stacking up the money. And then that period, the best day was basically 2019, around July, June, end of GCSE exams. So throughout that, basically there's a picture as well, we got 15 pairs of Travis Scott, and shoes back then were like investments as well, because they'd go out, there'd be massive hype, they'd sell, people would undercut because they want to get rid of it, they'd undercut. And I knew that, okay, these Travis Jordan 1 highs were the most hyped shoe. Everyone wanted them. They got released and they were selling for about £500 resale. So we only got one pair at retail for 150, which we kept because they were so nice. But we basically invested in about 20 pairs of these at £500. I put all my money in that, I made profit from this. Same with my dad, and we invested in all the Travises for 500, held them 3 months, and then now it was summertime, every pair was 1.5k. So literally from that alone, because like you could invest in stocks, crypto, all of this stuff, which I did and lost money in, but we knew shoes like the back of our hand. So it was so easy to just buy them, even at resale, knowing they'd go up. But GCSE, basically with school, like I've always done good in school, it's been always kind of easy for me. I've always wanted to do something, so kind of this time I got into trading, which we'll go into in a bit. But this last exam was like a physics exam, and that morning, you know the off-white MCA, the blue ones, Air Forces?
Yeah.
So that morning, those pairs were meant to come out, and we had the box ready. And on my way to school, I checked my email, order confirmation, just flooded.
Crazy fair.
So we got 10 pairs confirmation, and you don't know if it's shipped yet once you confirmed. So I'm going into my exam, like everyone in the school obviously knows, and we're like, what the fuck? Because at the time they were selling for 2k and retail was 150 again. So basically I'm like, fuck, I made 20 grand today. And everyone was like, what the fuck, how are you going to do your exam, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, bro, I'm not getting gas until they get shipped. So I went into the exam, a pretty easy exam, went out there and saw they all shipped, and I just went crazy. Everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, because it was like a 20k day at 16 essentially, and that was kind of the start of business. And then from there I went into trading. So trading Forex from 16.
With the shoes though, shoes, like why did you originally think when you were like 13, 14 that you could do this? Because that's like so rare, no one thinks about this.
Yeah.
And then how did you almost have like the motivation to actually make it bigger and bigger and bigger? Because that's again so incredibly rare. Because I did reselling, I did like Yeezys, I didn't really do like Off-Whites and stuff, we did a lot of Supreme, but I was like 15, 16 when I started that. You started earlier and you actually did better than I was. So like, why? Was your dad in business? Like, who put you onto that?
No, so I've always wanted to do something more. Like I get like my route, my goals in terms of what I wanted to do back then were completely different to what I've ended up doing. But I've always wanted more. It wasn't just a case of like I was happy being normal. I've always like from young been into cars, been into like a good life. I've always wanted more. And my dad's not any kind of businessman, he works in IT, and from him, like probably the values I've learned from him and from my granddad, who he came to the UK and with nothing, like no money in his pocket, had to feed a family of like 7, bought a house, didn't take any money for himself, like put it back into the family, back into the house, back into everything, and seeing what he done, I always wanted more. And my other granddad, he used to own nightclubs in Italy, so every time I'd go to Italy, everyone just loved him. He was a G, like everyone, you'd always get recognised, even at like 50, 60, 70 years old. So I've always seen it from them and wanted more myself. But then as well with the shoes, it just kind of stumbled. It's like, oh, this makes money, why wouldn't I do it type of thing. And because it was, I'd never done that, I don't know, did you do the in-person Supreme?
Yeah, we did in person.
So I've never done in person because with in person, I know a few guys that have scaled it, like with getting runners and all this stuff, but online was simple because you could scale it with bots, with auto checkouts. So I've always kind of been into it and always like seeked the knowledge, like paid for like private groups, paid for bots, because I see the success they were having. I'm like, I need to get into this, whatever the price is, reinvest it, pay for that information, and then use that information. And it was like a golden era back then.